Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mac. Boys and girls, hit the deck because we've got ourselves another drive-by cuting. Pop, 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 pop. Welcome to the real world. Survival of the fittest. Bring it.
Round 2, fight. You lose.
Getting rough in these streets, kids. All right, well, look, where we last left you, pioneers of pursuitude, was right here. Let's start off at 28:07, 47 minutes after the hour of 10. Topic is taxpayer theft, insider versus outsider, retain control versus lose control. Kennedy was an outsider. Yeah, we know what happened to him, right? Dun, dun, dun. Reagan was an outsider assassination attempt. Yeah, they ended up hitting one of the agents instead. POTUS is an outsider. Now, it says classification high. So we've long known that there's been some attempts on the POTUS's life, but there hasn't really been anything official or any kind of official accusation really ever in the course of this 2 years that we've seen. Now, this could be in regards to something that could be coming out, and it's still a high classification. Could be part of an investigation. Could this have something to do with our conversation with Andrew McCabe? Not really sure. But we do know that the possibility is there, and Q has suggested it. So we're pretty sure. Now, I'm not exactly sure if that might be referring to high classification people. I'm sure it could be a little bit of both, right? But I think we get the idea. These outsiders were outsiders for a reason, right? They didn't like deep state. They didn't like the idea of a deep state. Now, they weren't perfect presidents, but that was the real big common denominator, right? How much money, cash, was sent by the Fed to Iraq during the Iraq War? Then we get a few articles right here. The one is from The Guardian. How the U.S. sent $12 billion in cash to Iraq and watched it vanish. The other one is to CNBC, New York Fed's $40 billion Iraqi money trail. Both of these, this is from 2011. The other one is from 2007. And then there's this Reuters article, which we're actually going to talk about here, from February 2007. U.S. sent pallets of cash to Baghdad.
First of all, you're stupid.
The U.S. Federal Reserve sent record payouts of more than $4 billion in cash to Baghdad on giant pallets aboard military planes shortly before the United States gave control back to Iraqis, lawmakers said on Tuesday. The money, which had been held by the United States, came from Iraqi oil exports, surplus dollars from the UN-run Oil for Food program, and frozen assets belonging to the ousted Saddam Hussein regime. Bills weighing a total of 363 tons were loaded onto military aircraft in the largest cash shipments ever made by the Federal Reserve, said Representative Henry Waxman, chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Who in their right mind would send 363 tons of cash into a war zone? But that's exactly what our government did, the California Democrat said during a hearing reviewing possible waste, fraud, and abuse of funds in Iraq. On December 12, 2003, $1.5 billion was shipped to Iraq, initially the largest payout of U.S. currency in Fed history, according to an email cited by committee members. It was followed by more than $2.4 billion on June 22, 2004, and $1.6 billion 3 days later. The CPA turned over sovereignty on June 28. Paul Bremer, who as the administrator of the Coalition Provisional Authority ran Iraq after initial combat operations ended, said the enormous shipments were done at the request of the Iraqi Minister of Finance. He said, "I am concerned that I will not have the money to support the Iraqi government expenses for the first couple of months after we are sovereign. We won't have the mechanisms in place. I won't know how to get the money here," Brenner said. Okay, so you probably remember this story. And this happened quite a few times, not just with Iraq, but it looks like Iran too, right? Lots and lots of cash going out. Now, the cover story was essentially that a lot of this was their own money out of their own bank accounts. And I suppose I can't dispute all of that. Part of that might be true. But the fact of the matter is, if it's so true, why wasn't it getting transferred through a bank? Seems to be a little bit tricky to fly out 363 tons of cash, not to mention all the crew that has to go with it. It's a big, big thing to do. So why was all this money going out? How much cash was sent by the Fed to Iraq? Tons of it. Billions. How much money cash was confiscated from the Iraq Central Bank? And then we get this link right here from Ozy.com. When American-led forces first entered Baghdad in early April 2003, looters had already hit the Central Bank of Iraq, the fortress-like structure housing much of the nation's treasure, including its foreign currency reserves. Troops found burst pipes and blazing fires, but the looters had been unable to penetrate the bank's main vault or access its deposits. It turned out, however, that someone had already made a hefty withdrawal from the building to the tune of around $1 billion, easily making this the largest bank heist in history. At around 4 a.m. March 18th, the day before the American cruise missiles began to rain down on the Iraqi capital, 3 large trucks pulled up to the central bank, and for several hours, a steady stream of metal boxes filled with some $900 million in U.S. $100 bills and $100 million in euros were loaded onto the waiting vehicles. The heist didn't require guns or explosives, just a handwritten note handed to the bank's governor insisting that the extraordinary measure was necessary to prevent the money from falling into foreign hands. The man delivering the signed note was Qusay Hussein, the head of Iraqi security forces and the signatory of the note, his father and the son-to-be deposed Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. But despite Saddam's best efforts, the truckloads of cash did eventually fall into foreign hands, perhaps even your own. It was not surprising that when push came to a cruise missile shove, Saddam felt he could treat his country's cash reserves as his own private piggy bank. The megalomaniac had consolidated his power and surrounded himself with yes men to such a degree that nobody dared challenge him. So when Saddam, who had wrongly assumed that the Americans would never invade Iraq, made the last-minute demand for $1 billion, no one at the central bank requested a legitimate financial rationale for the withdrawal. When you get an order from Saddam Hussein, you do not discuss it, an unidentified Iraqi official with knowledge of the heist told the New York Times. When U.S. officials learned that the trucks had pulled away from the central bank with a quarter of the bank's hard currency reserves, they feared the funds would be used to finance the insurgency. When $650 million turned up behind a false wall of the palace belonging to Saddam's son Uday, some officials speculated it must have come from the central bank. It turned out to be Uday's own stash. So, had Saddam managed to make $1 billion vanish into the dusty Baghdad air? Not quite. As with the weapons of mass destruction and his own grizzled body, which turned up in a mud shack 8 months later, the dictator had not proved particularly adept at hiding things, even those he did possess. And as author James Risen chronicles in Pay Any Price, even before the U.S. had learned of Saddam's bank heist, American troops had discovered hundreds of aluminum boxes, each containing about $4 million in $100 bills, at one of Saddam's palaces. The money had been secretly flown to Kuwait, where military personnel were busy counting it. Now, this is where it gets interesting here. When John Taylor, U.S. Treasury Department's Undersecretary for International Affairs, learned of the money, he pressed top administration officials in the Situation Room to return the funds to where they rightfully belonged at the central bank. But the White House and Pentagon decided to keep the money and have the newly created Coalition Provisional Authority to distribute it to military commanders on the ground to use as they saw fit. Okay, well, that's where it starts to get a little tricky, right? Where was that money going? It was just going right back where it came from, or was it going into other organizations that were laundering all this? So this is interesting. Now, Q says example, not intended for public awareness. And now we get this link. This is off the New York Times from 2014. Investigation into missing Iraqi cash ended in Lebanon bunker. And I'm sorry, we've got so many links and so many Q posts that we can't go through all these here. But I just want to point out here, over the next year and a half, $12 billion to $14 billion was sent to Iraq in the airlift. And an additional $5 billion was sent by electronic transfer. Okay, so there was an electronic transfer there. And like I said, I think the bank account part saying that it already belonged to frozen existing bank accounts was partial cover and partial truth. The next link that Q gives us here is talking about Iran. U.S. paid Iran $1.3 billion 2 days after a $400 million transfer. And that's this link right here. Q says, if it worked in Iraq, why not replicate it in Iran? Of course, many of us know that story. We remember that from the Obama administration. How much cash was sent to Iran? Well, it says right here, $1.3 billion 2 days after $400 million. The only thing I want to point out here, to rememberize you this, on January 17th, the administration paid Iran the account $400 million principal in pallets of euros, Swiss francs, and other foreign currency. That's really, really important because it was other players, right? It was a lot of foreign players. Well, who controls the distribution of funds? Well, that's kind of a tricky one, right? It's not as simple as just saying it's not one person. It's sort of a group, whoever's got access to it, right? Who accounts for the funds? Now, I suppose it's not even as simple as just saying the CIA, right? But this is sort of a deep state knucklehead proxy. Who accounts for the funds? Who has access to the funds? Well, whoever was paying to play. Remember, pallets of cash in francs and euros. And I think if you want to know who specifically were players, they're probably the same big players that are in Iran now, essentially trying to develop a black site out there. And that's why all this, so much of it, I should say, was sent in cash. You can't trace that stuff. They never wanted you to see it. It was not intended for public awareness. And of course, the outer narrative, you can say, well, we owe these people. We were just unfreezing their accounts. And like I said, there could be an element of truth to that, because that kind of helps cover the inward narrative, which is the fact that billions and billions of dollars were just going amongst themselves back and forth and back and forth. And then it returns how? Do funds return in the form of political donations? You bet. Excuse me, I skipped this line. Who really has access to the funds? Well, like I said, it's really essentially whoever is a deep state player, whoever's playing. Excuse me, whoever's paying to play. Now, that could be a form of usually corporations or whatnot, but a lot of this came back in the form of political donations. Of course, it goes right back to the DNC and such. Do funds return in the form of massive donations to foundations and or institutes? That's exactly how it happens. Foundations, institutes, initiatives, humanitarian groups. That's how they do it. Do funds return in the form of offshore bank accounts for future payments and payoffs? Well, that seems like a good idea, right? Why have it all traceable in our own country? Replicate environment, green aid, etc. Yeah, exactly. That's what these deals are really about. Just taking a whole bunch more of your money and funneling it out back to foreign nations, and then back into whether it's your own campaign, political donations, whatever. But it's the same money, trillions of dollars at stake. And of course, this YouTube link right takes you right here. And if you've been following Q, you've seen this video many times. If not, check it out. This video will get Donald Trump elected. And he says here, trillions of dollars at stake. Exactly. Controlled by group of special interests. Imagine if we had all that money back. We'd have a couple of walls. Illusion of democracy. Welcome to the real world. We cannot afford to lose this rare opportunity to right the wrongs. We, the people, must reclaim what is rightfully ours. We must rise. We must fight. God bless the United States of America. Q. Let's move on. Post 2808, 9 minutes after the hour 12, 12:09:09. We get this video link right here. Takes you to the channel of Where We Go One, We Go All on YouTube. The title of the video is called QAnon is 100% coming from the Trump administration. Now, it's nearly a 30-minute video, so we're not going to play it all or anything like that, but there's some Q proofs in here, and this is pretty cool. So if you are looking to red pill some friends and you think there might be something that you can take from there, that's great. It's a nicely done video, so check it out if that's useful for you. Q seems to think so. Says, thank you, Patriot. Thanks for turning us on, Q. And thanks to Where We Go One, We Go All. And congratulations for the mention. Let's move on to 2809. 47 minutes after the hour 12. And we get this link to NBC. Q says, but fake news pushes the narrative that POTUS is ... Hashtag Wake Up America. Let's check it out. From NBC, new exclusive. Trump admin launches global campaign to end the criminalization of homosexuality in dozens of nations where it's still illegal to be gay. U.S. officials tell NBC News a bid aimed in part at denouncing Iran over its human rights record.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Okay, so this is beautiful on so many levels, if you ask me. Number one, of course, it calls attention to the real human rights abuse out there in Iran, which many people are crying out against, right? This was in direct response to the lynching of a gay man, and everybody knows that is not okay. You know, you don't just lynch people because they're gay. Out in the United States of America, we lynch people because we're racist. Right? All right, never mind. So look, this also calls attention to what we were just talking about, the fact that Iran is a deep state proxy and likely involved in not just the flushing of this cash, but remember, we're still talking about human trafficking too. And then, of course, I think the real irony here is the fact that the rest of the world agrees. And guess who else agrees? That's right, the butt hurt left agrees, and that's what's got them butt hurt today. So if you want to enjoy yourself, just go read that Twitter thread, and just they're looking for reasons to be butt sore. It's fantastic. So kudos to President Trump on this. This is great. They're going to fly out some activists out there and try and call some attention to that. And I do hope it works out well. Nobody should ever be lynched for something like that. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And that I think is most importantly. But if we control the libs in the process, even better. Let's move on to the next post. Post 2810. Q is responding to an Anon on 8chan here, 41 minutes after the hour of 1. It says, start from the beginning. Small sampling of proofs. Patriots in control. You are the news now. And that was in response to an Anon who had basically embedded this previous video from 2808 into 8chan for everyone to check out. So Q says, start from the beginning. Small sampling of proofs. Patriots in control. You are the news now. So you guys can go ahead and check that out on your own. We're going to move on to 2811. 48 minutes after the hour of 1. An Anon response. Q says, in control of what? Nothing. That's what. Ooh, tough talk there, Commander Keystroke. Q responds with a video. Says, are you ready, shill? Survival of the fittest. Q. Now, I can't play this because the song will get me some copyright, and I'm sure Tommy would like to profit off it. But it's a cool song. It's a cool video. It's a little hoorah video. Pump y'all up. Scary U.S. Armed Forces, U.S. military power 2018. How powerful is the USA? So if you feel like getting pumped, check it out. But more interestingly, Q doesn't just call this an on out, calls him a shill, so I wonder who we're talking to. Who's all butthurt on 8chan that Q seems to not only want to call out, but point out that they're shilling. Is somebody shilling? Survival of the fittest.
Round 3, fight! You lose.
The shills are dropping left and right, and of course they are coming out in droves, and that's how they have to do it because their arguments most certainly don't hold up on their own, right? So say hello to all the shills. They're definitely down below in the channels and on all platforms as of late. Now, one thing I wanted to point out real quick, and of course this was just a thought off the top of my head and literally nothing more, so don't take too much into it, but I noticed that fittest was capitalized, and of course it might just be some tough talk. But I also remembered that recently President Trump had his physical, and I kept thinking, boy, that would be one way to really try and get to the POTUS, right? Maybe they're letting us know that there was a survival of the fit test. Now, again, that might be a bit of a stretch, and I'm admitting that, but it was just a thought off the top of my head that I thought I would share. But the shills are out in full force, so be nice to them because they're rather pathetic. And to give you an idea of how pathetic they are, check this out right here. This is a notable from the 8chan board. That's right. Q, die in a fire, die in a fire, Q, 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 die in a fire. Post 2812, 18 minutes after the hour of 2. We've seen this picture before. We are Q, sweet pick. From the perspective of the POTUS, preparing to postulate from the podium. And it's just a reminder that I am Q as you are Q as we are Q together. Let's move on to 2813. 2 minutes after the hour, 3 p.m., we get this YouTube link right here. It's an interview to Joe DeGeneva, and he's talking about Andrew McCabe. Now, it is about a 15-minute video, so we don't have time to check it all out, but I want to turn your attention to this.
What you saw last night on 60 Minutes, coupled with Mr. McCabe's new book, was a signed confession that they violated the law, that they committed subversion and sedition against the President of the United States. They wanted Hillary Clinton to be president. She lost. They had to figure out a way to get rid of Donald Trump, and so they created a fake investigation based on no facts whatsoever. You will notice that during that lengthy interview last night, all you got was a conclusion from McCabe that they had a basis for investigating the president. Prior to the firing of Comey, there was no basis, and indeed Scott Pelley never asked him to articulate what the basis was. Although Scott Pelley thought he scored a coup, what he did was he revealed a coup, and he looked like a fool, as did Robin Roberts on ABC in the other case involving Smollett. So whatever you want to say about Scott Pelley in 60 Minutes, they accidentally performed a public service in the service of the citizens of the United States. Comey, McCabe, Baker, Strzok, Page all need to be behind bars, and their worst nightmare just happened Bill Barr walked into the building this morning.
Nice. Well, we do not have time to go through the whole video there, but if you get 15 minutes to check it out, there's lots of good videos, tons of good information coming in today. 28:14, 4 minutes after the hour at 6 p.m., we get this link to Sarah Carter right here. Exclusive. 1 year later, the president ordered ODNI and NSA to do it more than a year ago. We have yet to see that implemented. Representative Nunes tells me ODNI and NSA impede lawmakers' review of Obama admin unmasking requests. And the link takes you here to a Scarticle, and Scarticles are always nice and long. Yay, just what I need today. So I'm going to have to let you go through some of these long articles. There's just too much cue, but let's walk through a little bit of it. ODNI and NSA impede lawmakers' review of Obama admin unmasking requests. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the National Security Agency still have not granted access to Republican lawmakers to review hundreds of unmasking requests made on Americans by senior Obama administration officials, SarahACarter.com has learned. And I want to point something out down here. Ordinarily, Americans' names are redacted or minimized by the NSA before being shared with outside intelligence sources. The names of Americans in these communications with foreign persons are considered highly classified and are rarely unmasked. However, it was discovered that many senior officials in the Obama administration unmasked more frequently than previous administration. In some cases, the names were unmasked. In other cases, they were specific enough that the American's identity was easily ascertained. Intelligence sources had told this reporter. And I have a feeling that's kind of an understatement. I think they were spying on quite a few people. He was doing a ton of unmasking. So I'm going to let you go through this here because, like I said, Scarticles are pretty long. We've got a lot more cue to go through. But I think one key point is that a lot of our good information is coming from Sarah Carter and John Solomon. These are sort of Q's go-to guys, if you will. Let's read this part here. Discretion must be applied when dealing with matters of national security. Sensitive, ongoing investigations, and that's what a lot of what we're being able to see is stuff that's being declassified, but there's still a lot of classified stuff that is ongoing. But I think Q is reminding us that there are indeed investigations ongoing. Info released to date was necessary in order to refute the fake news narrative and provide the public with a taste of the truth, i.e. future events. Okay, so it's simply just being put out to counter what the other quote-unquote news is saying. Confirmed sources from the House that you gain critical from is simply one of the many vehicles used by design, controlled at the top, no leaks for this reason. So Q is saying we are good to go. Nothing is being leaked because it's all being investigated. Let's move on to 28:15, 5 minutes after the hour 6. Adding on to that, Q says insert info between critical and from on the move. And they're talking about this right here. Confirmed source House that you gain critical info from is simply one of many vehicles used. All right, let's move on to 28:16, 43 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. The declassification of all requested documents plus more will occur. This is not a game. Do not let personal, emotional desires do it now. Do it, do it, do it! What is taking so long now take over? Logical thinking and strategy should always be applied. Game theory. It's a great point. It's easy to get frustrated. And believe me, it's just as stressful for us too. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't do this right, we may not get another chance, right? We all want to see equal justice under the law. New threats. Investigation by the Southern District of New York. Adam Schiff. And then I guess this would be Mae West. No, I'm just kidding. It's Maxine Waters. In an effort to delay, prevent release, insurance extension. Yeah, the insurance. They want to make sure that whoever was not supposed to talk is now being probably threatened. And we saw that through James Comey's tweet yesterday. It looked like that was a sort of a general threat. And really all these investigations are just a stall for time to get us to some elections that hopefully they can work out an impeachment at some point. It's all going to fail. Transparency is the only way forward. Define the following: treason, sedition, subversion, conspiracy to commit. Well, they're all kind of different levels, aren't they? Treason being the top, of course, and sedition is basically when you're trying to shift that narrative. Subversion is usually when you take the efforts to put somebody in to actually subvert that narrative. Conspiracy to commit what? Treason. Do you understand and fully appreciate the gravity of the situation? I think we do. I think we're realizing that we are at war. And there's a big part of our nation that doesn't even know it. Do you understand and fully appreciate what POTUS endures each and every singly day? I don't know. I'd like to think that I do. I guess we're all busy dealing with our own thing, and I think we can all appreciate it. I don't know if we can fully understand and appreciate it, but I think we definitely, realize what's up. And I was saying this yesterday. Look, he's not doing this for the fame. He's not doing this for the coin, right? He loves this country. He loves you. We must stand together in this fight. There is evil in this world. There's darkness in this world. There are those in power who wish to control, enslave you, to keep you sedated, to keep you unaware, to keep you blind. This will be on our timetable, and we will deliver transparency and prosecution. There is simply no other way. Except one. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Q is referring to here. This sounds to me like a call out to whoever the deep state knuckleheads who are also listening in might be giving them an option to exercise before it's too late. That would be my guess. You can let me know down below, but we're moving on to 2817. Responding to an Anon country versus county. And this is 53 minutes after the hour of 6. Q says error made. So it was a spelling error back in the previous post here. Always on the move. Looks like it was just a typo. I've got fat fingers, so I'm used to that. Let's move on to 2818. 58 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. Q takes us back to September 15th, post 2176. And this is from Executive Order 13526. I know. Section 1.7. I know. Classification, prohibitions, and limitations. A, in no case shall information be classified, continue to be maintained as classified, or fail to be declassified in order to, 1, conceal violations of law, inefficiency, or administrative error. And that's exactly what they were doing, right? 2, prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. Number 3, restrain competition. Or 4, prevent or delay the release of information that does not require protection in the interest of national security. Well, they were definitely guilty of 1 and 2, right? And this is pretty ironic, right? Because this was Obama's big deal. And it looks like it's coming back to bite him now. And I've said this before, too. This simply states that not only does the president have the ability to declassify everything, but essentially the responsibility to the American people to do so. And how odd would it be that it's Executive Order 13526, Section 1.7. Let's move on for now to 2819. 21 minutes after the hour of 7 p.m., we get this right here. This is a press release from back in September 17, 2018. At the request of a number of committees of Congress and for reasons of transparency, the president has directed the Office of the DNI and the Department of Justice, including the FBI, to provide for the immediate declassification of the following materials. Pages 10 through 12 and 17 through 34 of the June 2017 application to the FISA court in the matter of Carter Page. 2, all FBI reports of interviews with Bruce Orr, which should be a pretty big deal, prepared in connection with the Russia investigation. And 3, all FBI reports of interviews prepared in connection with all Carter Page FISA applications. In addition, President Donald J. Trump has directed the Department of Justice, including the FBI, to publicly release all text messages relating to the Russia investigation without redaction of James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Bruce Orr. And then we get these tweets right here from Donald Trump. I met with the DOJ concerning the declassification of various unredacted documents. They agreed to release them, but stated that so doing may have a perceived negative impact on the Russia probe. Also, key allies called to ask not to release. Therefore, the Inspector General has been asked to review these documents on an expedited basis. I believe he will move quickly on this and hopefully other things which he is looking at. In the end, I can always declassify it if it proves necessary. Speed is very important to me and everyone. Okay, so look, I think essentially what we're saying here is we've had this for quite a while, this bacony, cheesy FISA declass goodness. And the reason why we couldn't drop the whole bomb is because a lot of it would get lost in the mainstream narrative. They don't want to talk about it as it is. So it has to come out little bits by bit. Now, there's been other parts that have implicated foreign actors, and so there are a lot of foreign actors that are trying to negotiate terms with this FISA D-Class too. So it all depends on what's going to come out, but it's all not going to drop at one time. Parts of it are James Baker's testimony, Bruce Orr's testimony. There's so much to this, these text messages right here, bits by bits by bits. But just like they use their talking points, we kind of have to use it in conservative media to establish talking points too, because that's the way, although it be slow, that's the way we're really going to essentially red pill people through the mainstream news. But it looks like this has been done for quite some time. Now, this was ordered back in September. Who knows what's all been declassed? Anything that is still under investigation cannot be. But once it is, we're starting to see that leak out through people like Sarah Carter and John Solomon. But it is leaking out. Q says review time. So I imagine a lot of what was being asked back here when everybody was talking about how they were stalling is probably going to come out, and we'll get a chance to look at some of that, and we'll probably be able to thank both Sarah Carter and John Solomon while they're talking on Hannity for the great job well done. Let's move on to 2820. 39 minutes after the hour, 7 p.m. We get this tweet from the 20th of May from Donald Trump. I hereby demand and will do so officially tomorrow that the DOJ look into whether or not the FBI, DOJ infiltrated or surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes, and if any such demands or requests were made by people within the Obama administration. Okay, so this was back in May, and although it feels like that's not what's going on, it is what's going on. It has been going on for quite some time. It's like we said, a lot of this is under investigation. Then we get this other tweet right here, and I'm afraid I don't know what the date is on this one. I hereby demand a second investigation after Schumer of Pelosi for her close ties to Russia and lying about it. And here's a photo right here. Photo contradicts Pelosi's statement about not meeting Kislyak. Looks like she's warming up to some Russias right there over dinner. Q says review time. So DC is in a panic. They know something is going to drop. It looks like it's D-class action dropping. Not the full D-class, but definitely some things getting fully D-class, if that makes any sense. 2821. 48 minutes after the hour of 7 p.m. Q is responding to an Anon on 8chan who says this to us. Anons, you've been my fam and my friend since Q came to town on October 28, 2017. I love you so much. I have to go take a very sick dog to the vet to get put down tonight because the cancer has gone too far. If my significant other were alive, I'd reach out, but brain cancer got him a few years ago. If my parents and bestest friend were alive, I'd reach out to them, but they're all in heaven now too. So you guys are the ones I know I can lean on for a little support, because saying goodbye even to a bloody old doggy can be so hard. Our time together here with Q has taught me how connected we are, even though we may never meet. I thank God for you guys, and I'll stay strong for my suffering pal tonight, because where we go one, we go all. You guys helped me say goodbye to a very old dog last winter, too. You helped me so much. I will introduce you to all my loved ones when we meet in heaven someday. For now, thank you, friends, for letting me share my sadness. I need to stay strong for some upcoming battles, and you help me more than my words can ever convey. Now, Q responds, thoughts and prayers. May you be comforted by the outpouring of love surrounding you. Yeah, and I'm sure that with Q responding to you, hopefully you got some more messages sent your way. Yeah, it's tough to lose a loved one, isn't it? And as you probably have noticed, I'm kind of fond of animals, particularly dogs. Dogs are a man's best friend, in my opinion. So, best of luck to you, Anon. I know that's a tough loss. And but like I said, I think it's really nice that Q went ahead and reached out so that other Anons can reach out to you. Let's move on to 2822, 8 minutes after the hour at 10 p.m. We got Gulliver here. He's pushing the emergency button. Look at all that's going on right here. My goodness, you got the Federal Reserve over here tying his feet down. Looks like Pelosi and Schumer are stealing his loafer. You got Swalwell over here. Nobody's homie Comey. Obama's still swinging away. Tlaib, oh, she's speaking some rough words there. You got Rod Rowe pulling at his arm. Maxine Waters looks like she's rappelling off. Then you got Ilhan, oh Mary, your bromar, and Robert Mueller just snapped on his strings. Looks like McCabe is hanging himself from his. So you see what's up. Very, very cool graphic once again from the great Ben Garrison. And this is his Twitter link right here. Q says, thank you, Patriot. Let's move on to 2823, 10 minutes after the hour at 10 p.m. An Anon who's talking about Ben Garrison says he needs to be invited to the White House, Q. Q agrees, says all he needs to do is ask. Wow, is it that simple for all of us, Q? I don't make sweet cartoons, but I can make a pretty decent burn here and there. Can I come to the White House and play? Q? Mr. President? Anyone? Anyone? Let's move on to 2824, 11 minutes after the hour at 10. We saved the best part of the picture for last right here. There it is. Look at the top of that alarm right there.
A Q.
Yeah, how did you know that, John?
It's gotta see it.
It does. It's got a big fat see it right there. He's pushing the red button. That's part of the emergency. This guy says it's such a lovely Q too, and Q tends to agree. Very nice. Thanks for that, Ben Garrison. 2825. 43 minutes after the hour at 10 p.m., we get this Twitter link right here. And this takes you to Lisa at JazzIsNana1, who says, watching NCIS New Orleans. They're talking about Q. Very cool. Q says, Filter's picking up many references tonight. Desperate to sway opinion. Well, I don't know what the context is because I don't watch TV. But a lot of you have sent me some screenshots from different shows. Now, there was some show, I don't know if it was an NCIS or whatever, but I guess somebody was missing a Q on their keyboard and somebody brought it back to them or whatever. Like I said, I didn't know the context because I don't watch TV, but some of you guys have been sending me cool screenshots. And sometimes I just archive that stuff for fun stuff later. So I've seen little bits here and there because I don't watch TV. I have no idea what they actually mean in the context of the show. You guys can tell me if it has something to do with swaying the opinion of the narrative. I wouldn't want to speak to that without having seen the shows, but you guys can let me know. But I am aware of the references and that they're coming out, so feel free to send them to me. If you got any cool little video clips or anything, you're welcome to send me those too. But anything that you guys think that you might be able to get used on the show, I'm always happy to entertain that. But there you go. And for now, those seem to be your Q posts. That's all I got for you for now. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much to all of you who already do that. I greatly appreciate you, especially in these times. If you are new to my channel, welcome to you. Please keep in mind that from time to time, you will get unclicked, unnotified, and unsubscribed. Think it won't happen to you? Just ask around. It will. And just for that reason, please do me a favor and join me on one of these other platforms. My real.video, which is now brightyoung.com. Link is down below. My Gab, my BitChute, all down below, as well as my Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. Also, my email link is down below. There is a meme link down below that you can check out. And if you're old school and want to send me something to my P.O. box, you can send that too down below. And if you'd like to support my channel, my Patreon link is down below too. All those links are down below. Now, a quick note for those of you who like to send information to me, please do not DM me on Twitter. I don't respond to DMs on Twitter. So please, again, I say don't DM me on Twitter. I just don't do it. Email, I actually make I set aside a particular time to respond to emails, and so that's the best way to get that. And on that note too, please don't add me to your mass forward emails. That stuff just gets deleted. I've got so many emails to go through as it is that I can't respond to them all. I'm trying my best. I really, really am. But please don't add me to your mass forward list. It just gives a whole lot of bulk added on to my emails that I got to try and get through. I greatly appreciate it. I want to be able to help you guys too, but I can't if I'm overwhelmed with material. We've got a lot to go through. There you go, kids. It's all down below. This is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay cool.